Peace. What's good? How y'all doing? This is ZaZa Ali. Today is Sunday, June the 5th, 2022. I pray this message reaches you all in the best of health, spirit, and mind. This is my second video back to back. This is actually from my Ask Me Anything series that I do in my membership channel, my private membership channel. And I have two questions I'm going to address today, but one of them I'm going to share publicly because it's something that I was planning on doing a video about this anyway. I'm going to do a separate video about the quote unquote strong Black woman. But before I do, I'm going to share this message with you guys because I know that this is important and because I know that this is something that, needs to be dealt with in the collective consciousness, particularly for Black people in America. So I'm going to share the first question with you guys. And then the second question is about jealous and insecure coworkers. So I'll share that with the group. But before I get into it real quick, I want to remind everyone I have launched a private membership channel. So all of my content, including the Ask Me Anything series, where members can ask me for my perspective on anything they want to ask me about. That's really a private thing for the group. But when I talk about subjects that I feel like are important for the collective consciousness, I will share those publicly. That's why you're hearing me right now. So also my content now is available on demand. The Ask Me Anything segment won't be available on demand, but I have other videos now that are on demand if you don't want to sign up for the membership page. And lastly, but not least, on July 23rd, I will be having my next event in LA. So stay tuned if you're interested in attending that. I'll be posting more content about that soon. I had my commercial set up for the video that I did earlier, and I didn't even play it because I was excited about the conversation. So I'm going to go ahead and play that now and share that with you guys. Everybody that watches my content and follows my channel should know that I have written 6 books, 4 workbooks, metaphysics workbooks. This one is Keys to Womanhood. In the intro, I wrote that a woman has been blessed with the honor of 2 wombs, both portals for the universe to express itself in the physical realm. Her physical womb is the vessel through which God manifests in the flesh. Her mental womb is the vessel through which God manifests its wisdom. She is creative, not created. Please accept this workbook as my contribution to the divine feminine consciousness. It's a labor of love and contribution to our daughters, mothers, and the highest potentials of womanhood. And in the table of contents, we have Becoming a Queen, It Takes a Village, A Digital World, Boys to Men, Honoring Thy Temple, and Mind, Body, and Soul. This is my second workbook that I ever wrote. It's The Science of Self, dealing with the power of the mind. And in the intro, I wrote Metaphysics, the branch of philosophy that examines the fundamental nature of reality, including the relationship between mind and matter, between substance and actuality. Please accept this workbook as my contribution to the study of mind, consciousness, energy, and frequency and vibration. And last, but certainly not least, The Alchemist, from Change Your Mind to from Lack to Abundance. The Alchemist is one who transforms all energies into higher frequencies of light and love. They are the bringers of a new dawn, transmuting the old paradigms into a higher intelligence and order. They act solely for the highest good of all. Love is the only master they answer to. Please accept this workbook as my contribution to the study of self-love, mental power, and consciously creating reality. This book covers understanding emotion and the magnetic factor. Water starts to mold when it stands still. Make peace with yourself. Forgiveness, the superpower, unfinished business, dominant vibration in matters of the heart. 4 rooms, honoring all of you. What is your master teacher? The mirrors of the soul. Where is your center? Prosperity, consciousness, imagination, and abundance. The power of visualization, the law of attraction, and you create your reality. So this is just a gentle reminder that everything that I talk about in my content, on my videos, in my courses, my workshops, when I work privately with clients, I've also written content workbooks to help and assist you in that endeavor. And then The Science of Sex, which is my fourth workbook, it's not a part of the commercial, but that's also available to you as well. So let's get into this. My first question from the group, from a sister who wrote me and asked me, basically, she, asked me a few other things, but this was the summation of her question. Do you think there is an attack on Black women? Yes and no. And I say yes and no because there is a spiritual and a physical connotation to everything, right? So especially when you are, operating from the vantage point of spirituality. Let me start my clock so I can make sure I don't go over my desired time of talking. Stop this and reset it. Okay, so yes and no again, because there is a spiritual and a physical connotation to every question and every aspect of our reality, right? So I'm going to answer yes first. Yes, on a physical plane, there is an attack on Black women, and it's multi-dimensional, right? And it's hard to talk about spiritually based concepts with people that don't operate from a spiritually based perspective, right? So sometimes when I say things and I'm trying to go into the metaphysics of a conversation, and then somebody will come back with some rudimentary, basic, unintelligent, and I'm only saying unintelligent because some of the things that people say just really kind of makes me scratch my head. For instance, I use the example of Kanye West. He said that he became more feminine in his approach to fashion and even in life and just general. I'm paraphrasing, because he was only raised by his mother, right? So he started to notice that he had these feminine tendencies or aspects about his personality, and he attributed to only being raised by his mother. That doesn't mean that Kanye West is gay. That doesn't mean that Kanye West acts like a woman. I was referencing his personal experience and his personal truth, and using that as an example to help us understand how some men are acting out of an unevolved or unbalanced part of their feminine self. Now, that's a metaphysics analysis, right? So people who live in the world on a surface level, surface dwellers, right, aren't really looking to go into the heart of the matter, won't understand, no matter how in depth I go about that perspective, won't understand that, right? So I use that as the backdrop because I want us to understand that we're living and dealing on a very surface level when it comes to Black issues. Like always marching and protesting about police brutality when white people abuse our men, but never doing anything when it comes to taking self-accountability for the violence in our own communities. That's a reactionary, trauma-based way of handling things. And until we deal with the issues in our own culture, in our own community, and how we handle and treat ourselves, there's never going to be any change in terms of how Black people in America interact with white people. That is a fact in my mind, but some people will completely rebuke everything that I'm saying and only want to focus on white people and white supremacy. Go for it. That's just not how I operate. So in terms of Black women being under attack, yes. Yes, Black women are under attack, and I'm in America, so I'm going to deal with America, even though Africa is a whole conversation unto itself. And if we deal with Africa, then the white man starts to play take a back seat, and we have to deal with African men, which again, we tend to not want to do. So my initial assessment is yes. When you look at social media, when you look at a lot of the people, going back to the Kevin Samuels thing, right? And whatever your thoughts are about him, pro, con, whatever, let's put that to the side for a second. We have a culture, men and women alike, who don't hear Black women calling out or complaining about the disrespect, the abuse, the ongoing social media attack, quote unquote, right? We have a large number of Black women who have expressed concern or express feeling a certain type of way based on how the culture treats Black women in our music, in our film, in our media, on social media, right? We have very anti-Black women who have influencers, quote unquote, and I use that word in a very loose term. These people have amassed great success in social media terms, get a lot of attention, a lot of likes, a lot of follows, and they have very anti-Black woman sentiment. Now, you can want to hold Black women accountable. You can point out the flaws of Black women, right? We can have intellectual dialogues and conversations about our shortcomings without being disrespectful. Or can we? So when I'm talking about looking at the collective consciousness, right? Because there's an individual perspective and then there is a collective consciousness to all of this, right? The collective consciousness is very off-putting for me as a Black woman when I see the way Black women carry themselves, when I see the way Black women talk about one another, when I see the very overtly sexual nature that is being promoted through film and through these different industries. And I'm not just saying this as a Black woman, I'm saying this as a mother with a Black son, right? So my son has to go out into the world and engage and deal with Black women and operate from the vantage point that I taught him, which is there's a basic level of respect that you need to have up front. Everything else needs to be earned. But just a basic common male, female, Black man, Black woman, man, woman, just from your base divine self, there is a level of respect that should be had off top. Now, there's a caveat to that. Because if a woman or a young woman is disrespecting herself from the jump, how do you handle that? So we have the online propaganda, anti-Black woman sentiment. And then we have the domestic abuse and domestic violence and murders that happen in urban communities and in the ghettos every day, right? Male on woman violence. We have the emotional and mental abuse element of it. We have the attack in movies and in films and, you know, in the collective consciousness where Black women are only being shown and subjected or objectified sexually. That's disrespectful to me. Not that it happens, but that it's like 99% of the content. Because, you know, we talk about Black girl magic and, you know, strong Black women or strong mothers or, you know, and I'm going to do a separate video about the word strong. So I don't want to go left on you guys. But when we talk about the representation of womanhood, that, you know, the sensual sexuality aspect of a woman represents like 5% of who she is. What do you mean 5%? You said, you know, you're a physical being, that's 20%, you know, that's a quarter of who you are. You're a mental, spiritual, emotional, and physical being, right? So that's 4 different pieces of yourself, if you will. But then your physical self, there's layers to that. Because the way you eat and your diet deals with your physical self. The way you work out, or if you work out, or the physical care that you take for your physical body. Then there's your internal physical body, your lungs, your heart, your kidneys, your ovaries, right? Your anatomy, that's a part of your physical self. That's also a part of your sexual self. So you have all these different dimensions of the physical self, right? And yes, sexuality, sexual attraction, physical beauty, those things are a part of that, but it's only a part of that. Black women, for the most part, in modern society, are being projected and reflected in a 90%, maybe even more than that, sexually based capacity. So if you're moving out into the world as a young Black woman trying to find your place, and everything is reiterating to you that your power or your importance is based on your physical reflection and your sexual frequency, do you think that that's going to be that the answer from the world, the answer from society, right? Because humanity is a mutual transaction. You're always giving and receiving, always. Not just with the people in your personal life. When you go to the grocery store, when you deal with the bank, you have these different transactions. When you travel, when you have meetings, when you deal with coworkers, these are all reflections of transmutation, right? Reciprocity, mutual giving and receiving. But we're always interacting with the broader society around us. How does society interact with you if the majority of representation that they see of Black women, because we're an ecosystem, the individual and collective consciousness, but the ecosystem is the collective consciousness. This is why we say representation matters, right? So Kamala Harris and Michelle Obama and, you know, whatever Black woman is representing Black women in whatever the medium of culture is, the physical representation, it matters, right? Because you look at Michelle Obama and, you know, okay, if she can do that, I can do that too. If Serena can do that, I can do that too. So it opens the minds up to possibilities because women are an ecosystem. Even when white women make certain accomplishments, if you're just a woman who's, you know, out in the world, like, yes, I can do whatever I want to do, and you see a woman break a glass ceiling, it should make you feel like, okay, it's doable now. If you're not living in the world with you know, a cap on your mind. So now let's juxtapose that from the ecosystem perspective. Our ecosystem of Black women is continuously perpetuating overtly sexual images and references. I saw a video clip of Candy Burris. You know, she's got a company that sells sex toys. I didn't even know there's a whole Instagram page where she's like doing these little skits to promote her brand. It's just, it's like, you know, you have children, you have a daughter who's a young woman. You know, nothing is sacred in terms of sex anymore. Everything is about feel good right now, energy, vibration. So I'm saying all of this to say that the way that Black women collectively, not individually, collectively are representing themselves on the world stage, a la Megan Thee Stallion, it has a ripple effect that causes other cultures and other women and Black women and Black men to disrespect us. That's a fact. So going back to the original question, yes, we're in the physical aspect of this first. Yes, our daughters are selling their bodies on the track in Black communities all across this country. We haven't done anything about it. The sex trafficking industry is booming in Atlanta. You think they snatching little white girls out there? Maybe, but not predominantly. Can you imagine a 10 or 11 or 13-year-old girl walking home from school and somebody pulling up in a van and snatching her and taking her and putting her on drugs to where she completely forgets who she is and has any connotation of herself, and then proceeds to sell her out to grown, weird, ugly, nasty, wicked men. That's one girl. Now imagine like 200,000 or 300,000. We have not collectively done anything to stop that from happening. And I use Atlanta as an example because, you know, it's supposed to be the Black Mecca. And it is the Black Mecca in certain regards, at least. There's no movement on this particular subject. So yes, Black women are under attack. But the question is, why? And moving into the spiritual aspect of this conversation, we are operating on a very low vibrational, almost continuous, definitely lack-based consciousness, but a continuous, perpetual, victim-based consciousness. That's not only Black women, that's our culture in general. Like I said, we don't, violence in our community, white people get involved, all hell breaks loose. Why is that? Why does Derek Chauvin get more attention than, little man on the block who killed somebody's son? Because we are tethered to white people in a way that radiates victim-based consciousness. And so, as I've said before many times, when you have, let's just say women in particular, even though plenty of male slaves were raped, we don't talk about that, but that was a very big aspect in the, the slave market, slave trade. They weren't only raping girls and women. They were raping boys and men too, for hundreds of years. What does that do to the collective consciousness? That's another story for another time. But when you have, let's settle on the 500-year trajectory in terms of slavery. When you have 500 years of nonstop rape and nonstop abuse and nonstop non-protection, because even if you got married as a slave, there was no protection. Just engulfed and immersed in 100-year cycle of trauma and abuse and dysfunction and insanity. Because the slave masters were insane. All of them. And any of their descendants who haven't repented since or acknowledged how dysfunctional the role that their families played in generational trauma. These people were savages, all of them. Talking about slave masters, not all white people. And if white people can't acknowledge that the whole slave culture and any slave masters, including your founding fathers, if you're not willing to admit that those people were savages and insane, then you probably are too. So for 500 years being raised and reared and trained and disrespected and ostracized and abused and torn apart in every concept of humanity that you can possibly imagine. And there was never any intentional collective focus on healing, trauma-based therapy. Let's stop for a minute. Let's pause everything and let's take a look at what's really happened to us so that we can fix this and get this right so that our children don't continue to radiate this trauma. Has there ever been a collective movement? No, there has not. So our people and our culture as a collective are radiating victim-based, lack, L-A-C-K, based consciousness. This is why we're not progressing collectively. And the more we focus on white people and the less we focus on ourselves, the more the victim and lack-based consciousness will continue to expand. It's basic mathematics for me at this point. So now bringing this back to the specifically Black women, you know, a child that is abandoned and neglected has a very difficult opportunity or a very difficult trajectory from that abandonment and neglect and abuse to growing up and becoming a full, wholesome, fully functional human being, fully functional human being. It's a very difficult journey. Very few people make that transition. Most people end up in bottles, liquor, alcohol, running from themselves, or drugs, or, you know, sexual addictions, or whatever medium they find to run from themselves, they bury themselves in it because of abandonment and trauma and abuse. So imagine what a 500-year collective psychology and consciousness will produce in women who are the emoters of the planet, by the way. We are the heart and soul of the earth. And Black women hold a very special and peculiar and complex role in that, because we were the first, the original, so to speak. So now here we are supposed to be moving into this enlightened consciousness, the age of Aquarius, you know, falling away from the old and walking into the new, you know, moving away from the linear minded consciousness and perspective and into the collective consciousness, the way that God operates, right? This is where we're supposed to be as women, and look at the overall condition of us. And I'm not talking about all women, because most of the women that I know are just working jobs, taking care of their children, maybe struggling, maybe doing well, successful in different endeavors, but they're just trying to figure it out like everybody is. But Black women seem to be the focal point for our culture in terms of what's wrong. You're not doing what you're supposed to be. You're not who you're supposed to be, right? All this projection constantly from family, from other women in the family. You know, in Africa, in certain areas, tribal areas where they're still doing female circumcisions, the women are the ones who do those procedures. So, and I know I'm kind of jumping around all over the place, but it's all good. It's all relative. This is what happens when I don't write notes. This is why I'm always writing notes, because I like to stay on subject, you know? But when you guys have, for the Q&A, this is, you know, this is just us having a conversation. So we just gonna have a conversation. And if I forget something, I'll just make another video. So when your energetic resonance, your vibrational countenance, your overall expectations of the world. What are Black women's overall expectations of the world? Really, for real. We expect that we have to deal with racism. That's off top. I can't tell you how many women I've talked to who had issues with white people at their job. And once they stopped focusing on the fact that on the white people with issues at their job, the issue stopped. That's not the answer to racism, but it's a fact. So expecting racism, expecting a shortage of men, which is fascinating because, you know, it's a big planet. Oh, there's such a shortage of men. You're gonna have to share, you're gonna have to this. There's no good men out here. The statistics of gay men now, the statistics of Black men in prison, da, 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 da. Like there's so many negative factors for women, Black women, to comb through before they come to some light. I'm talking about out the womb. Then you got molestation, which is a real problem. Rape and molestation, pedophilia. We don't like to talk about it, but yeah, God's getting ready to bring it all to the surface. The collective consciousness. That's what I mean when I say God. It's all coming out. It's not just the Pope or the Catholic Church. But like I said, what do we expect from 500 years of men and boys being raped? So we have those hurdles, right? And then you have the female on female dichotomy. Pause. I'm talking about the way women interact with one another, the cattiness, the jealousy, you know what I'm saying? The whole hater element, bragging about haters, which is always interesting because it really is not about you. It's about them and their lack of personal confidence. That's why they're even focusing on you. So we have all these different elements about womanhood. Even the strong Black women thing, right? We need you to be strong. That was the sentiment for 500 plus years. Now it's, God, you're too strong. But what the hell do you think 500 years of nonstop abuse and chaos represents, creates? Oh God, you're too strong. Oh God, I don't want to be strong anymore. I want strong women around me. Sorry. Strong, balanced women around me. Strong in the right areas. When I say I want to have a strong mind and have strong willpower. And then a sister came on the video and she didn't mean anything. She just was expressing herself, which she has the right to do. She said, I'm tired of being strong. And I had to step back because, I had done the video. So I knew the point that I was trying to make. And it was definitely not emphasizing this quote unquote strong Black woman caricature. And I use the word caricature because depending on who you ask, you're going to get 1,000 different responses from I'm tired of being strong to, yes, I got the S on my chest. What do we do next? Right? All these different complexities based on personality. I want strong women around me. Sorry. I don't know what to tell y'all. Especially now. What's the opposite of strong? Weak, right? So yes, I want you to be strong, but I want you to be balanced. Sometimes crying most times crying represents strength. Your emotional body is operating at a high capacity. Great job. Let the tears flow. Sometimes being strong means being vulnerable. How many Black women do you know actually are capable of real, true, authentic vulnerability? That's strength. And it ain't got nothing to do with changing a tire or putting oil in your car or bringing your groceries in the house. So to the root of the question, and I'm going to do the video about strong Black women. So sis, anything that I forget, because I'm already pushing the 30-minute mark, anything that I forget, I'll come back and double down in that video. Black women are under attack because Black women are radiating lack and victim-based consciousness. Black women aren't being respected because our culture is predominantly promoting an overtly sexualized caricature of Black womanhood that is extremely disrespectful to all Black women as well as our ancestors. Black women don't know their power. So we're attracting all of this nonsense. Black women don't understand the significance of being the first, the original, the role of responsibility and accountability. So there's a perversion happening right now. Oh, okay, you don't want to step up and be the mother?